Hey folks, in this next video we're going to be talking about sum, lag, lead, and then partition by for each of those. Now this video is part 2 in a part 3 series that's going to be a playlist. But here's the thing, the first video we did sum, lag, and lead without partition by, but we blew through it pretty quickly. This one's normal, meaning normal time. So we're going to go through it a little bit slower because we're going to be doing the partition by, and that's really where you start unlocking the powerful features of analytical functions in SQL Server. So before we even get started, why don't we just select from this table? It's an employee table. We're going to order by salary. It's just like a typical good old table for, the purpose of an example. So we've got the key field, the ID, we've got the employee, the salary, the department, and the hire date. No big deal, okay? It's just a straightforward table. Okay, now what we're going to do is the first thing I want to do is I want to show you sum. But when I do this, okay, when I show you the sum, I'm going to show you a running total. This is a little different than when you use sum with group by. When you do a sum with a group by, you could group by different things, but the analytical functions are more powerful because what they do is they allow you to show a sum of a certain field, but you can also show other fields which would normally be excluded in a group by clause. Okay, now let me just show you this. You notice here in this particular window, we've got sum salary, but then we've got this thing called over, and then we've got these parentheses. And then I have a whole bunch of white space here. Why would I do that? See, I'm selecting star up here, which is the same star here. We're gonna get all of these fields, but it's gonna add another one called running total. But it's gonna do this weird stuff, sum salary, and then it's gonna say over, and then order by salary. Watch what happens, and then I'll show you why I have this white space here. We run this, okay? So it puts all the same fields that we just had before, but then it adds a running total. Now what does that mean, a running total? You would think that if this is the sum salary, it would be the sum of all the salaries in the table, and we would just see it repeated every time, but that's not how it works. This is the running total. So for example, the first person that you're ordering by makes 14,000, so the total is 14,000. But now the next person makes 16,000, so it's really 14,000 plus 16,000, so we come up with 30,000. 14 and 16 and 18,000 makes 48,000. So it really is a running total, so it's really cool. And yeah, if you go on an interview for SQL, this could very well be one of the simple questions they ask you. And guess what? If you don't know how to do this, they may not tell you this, but pretty much the interview is over. So you have to know how to do that. But like anyone else, if you were to show this to your boss, let's say you just put something like this together. It may not be salaries, because how are you really going to know everybody's salary? But let's just say you put together a query like this. What's the first thing that your boss is going to ask you in real life? Hey, this is really good, but it would be better if you did it by department. Instead of just by the whole table or by everybody in the whole thing. So what you can do is now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this same exact query and I'm just going to add a couple of things to it. And that's what this part is. See, now let me just flip-flop back and forth and see if you can tell what's different. See here, I just added this thing called partition by department. And when you hear the term analytical function, sometimes it's called a window function, not windows like the operating system, but just window like a window in a building, and I'll show you why that's the case in a minute. But partition by is really actually what makes an analytical function into a window function, because it creates windows, but it's called a window function. And the only other thing I'm doing differently, here I've got salary, but here I've got department and then salary, and you'll see why I did that. Why don't I just run this, and then you can see what's happening. See, now, let me just make sure these are sort of lined up. Okay, let me see if that lines up. That's close enough. Here, the running total goes for the entire, all the way down. The numbers just keep getting bigger and bigger. Man, I wish I had that in the bank. Why did I say that? Okay, because it's true. All right, But when we do it with partition by department, all of a sudden something really cool happens. First of all, we're ordering by department, but get this. Here's the finance department. It basically starts with the 89.6, 89.6, 116, and now it adds the two of those together. Now 123,000. It adds all three of these together, and then it adds all four. But then look what happens when we get to HR. It starts over. See, it's not adding all this stuff from finance, but it keeps them separated. See, it's almost like picture this record set or this data set, these query results, as a building, and this is like a window. And then this is like another window. This is like a really little window because it's only one record. And then IT, we've got this over here. So it basically, the odometer resets every time because it starts back at the beginning. And that's the beauty of using partition by. See, without that, without partitioning by the department, it would just use the whole table. And I just have to show you this, since we're here. Da, 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 da. Okay, so now it's very important. This has nothing to do with the programming side of it, but look at all the money that these software developers make. Look at this guy, makes almost $1 million. Hey, that's why you want to do software. Okay, so basically, you see how sum works when you do an analytical function. You can do a running total and impress everybody, because if you didn't have this is not a lot of code. The first time you look at it, it may look strange because you see the word over and you see this funky thing called partition by, that you might not be used to seeing. That's okay. You'll get used to it. Once you write it a few times, you'll be good to go. And it'll start looking normal. But just imagine if you didn't have this. How would you do this on your own? You would have to have temp tables and looping, and it would take you an hour at least to do this. And the code would be a lot longer than this. It would probably be like 60, 70, 80 lines of code at least. You'd have to declare variables. It would be a nightmare. But with the analytical function, see, all that heavy lifting is being done in a place that we can't see. Who cares? Because it's all compiled somewhere and we're protected from it. So now lag and lead work similar to this, except the functionality is a little different, but the idea is the same. So let me move over to that part. What I'm going to show you first is lag. Now here's the same thing. We're going to be doing order by salary, but I forgot to move this over, so let me just do that. Shame on me. I don't have to do this. I'm only doing this for demo purposes. There we go. Okay. There we go. Now when I do lag, here's what lag means. If I'm doing a lag on salary, that means I'm going to order by salary, only because I'm saying that down here. But then what I'm going to say is everybody who has a salary, which is everybody, I want you to show me their salary, but then I want you to show me the one that lags before them. Like, in other words, if I want to see the next lower salary or the one that's less than the one that I'm looking at for the current record. So here's what it looks like. Okay? It's real simple. This guy, Allentown, Billy Joel, he makes $14,000 a year. He makes the lowest, so nobody lags behind him. So I'm calling it next lower. That's just my own term. I could have called it anything. I could have called it lag, but I called it next lower. There is no salary next lower to his because he makes the least. But Sean Moransky, who makes $16,000, well, the only one below him is $14,000, so it shows up over here. $18,000, well, you would think that $16,000 would be his lag, and it is. And then it goes all the way to the end, and then, here's this person, Frank Schmank, that makes $980,000, and then the lag behind him are, any one of these 290s. But basically, that's how lag works. And you guessed it. If I go to lag over and then partition by department, and then, of course, I remember to add in department to the order by so things don't get wonky. Basically, it does the same exact thing, except for every department, it starts over. So this now, each department, the lowest salary, lower or lowest salary in that department won't have a next lower because it is the lowest. And then it starts over again for HR. These numbers are only in the HR department. The intern, there's only one. Why is an intern getting paid? How does that even work? That's the intern job you want. Okay. Unless his name is intern. Anyway, or he's in an internment camp. Dave, you can't say that on TV. Okay. So every department, the lag starts over. Good to know. Okay. Now lead. You always hear about lag and lead together. Lag and lead are basically opposites. In one case, it's which salary lags behind one, and in lead, it's like which one is in the lead before the other one. So here's something interesting. When we run this, we're just going to run it for the whole table. There's no partition by. The space is optional. You don't ever really have to write that in. Now, here's something interesting. Allentown, he does have somebody higher than him because he's the lowest guy in the whole place. So he doesn't have a null value here like he did in this one. The lowest guy has a null value for lag, but he definitely has a value for lead. Do you see that? However, the converse is true. The guy that makes the most money, nobody makes more than him, so he doesn't have anyone leading him. Oh, and by the way, for lead, I could have just called it lead, and I probably should have, but I called it next higher. Whenever you do a video tutorial for other people, you're going to rename stuff anyway that seems logical. But you know what? I could have just as easily called this lead. Now, you already know what's going to happen on this. When I put in partition by, it's going to do everything exactly like you see it here, except it's going to group it by department, and then it's only going to be showing the lead per department. And again, here's what it looks like. Now remember, when we did the lag by department, what would happen is the first person would always have a null value because they were the lowest. When we do the lead, they'll have something here, but there will be a null value for the guy or the woman that makes the highest. And here's what it looks like. So we hit this, and so now here's the finance department. Something's not right here. Lead salary over next hire from employees, ordered by department salary. What is going on with this? Lead salary. Well, this is interesting. Order by salary, partition by... Oh! See that? It says order... See how, like, messed up looking this is? Even though you've only probably seen this for the first time, you see how messed up that is. That should say department. Boy, you miss one thing, and it messes up everything. Yeah, you don't want that to happen when you're doing a video. There we go. Much better. So now it's partition by department. Yeah, partitioning it by salary really is meaningless in what we're doing here. Okay, so here's what we have. So for finance, just like what I said before, the person who makes the least, of course they have somebody higher. But in that department, the person that makes the most, they don't have anybody higher. So in each window, based on department, it shows all the leads except for the person who makes the most, because nobody's in the lead of them. This window here, same thing. Nobody can beat Bill Brown for $64,000. Intern, we don't even care about the intern. IT, or maybe that's just pronounced it. Nobody makes more than John Smythe. Behind his back, everybody calls him Smitty. The legal department, nobody makes more than Louise McSqueeze. That's not a real name. We made up Louise. Okay. You get the idea. You get the idea. So basically, that's how lag and lead work. And with partition by, it makes it really powerful. And you saw how sum works with a running total and then partition by. It really makes things powerful. And you save so much time because you don't have to write pages and pages of code to get this firepower to work. If you like this video, please consider hitting the like button. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, and if you like my teaching style, please consider subscribing. And we're going to have a third video about this with the lag and the lead and the sum. It's actually really only going to be lag and sum, but what it's going to have is a real world example of when you would actually use these things together, something that's actually useful in the next video. So stay tuned for that. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in the next video.